see, on top there's Don Lino.
Right.
There's me. And there's regular fish.
Oh, that's me.
No. There's plankton. There's single-cell amoebas.
Oh, then there's me.
I'm getting there. There's coral. There's rocks. There's whale poo. And then there's you.
Hey, you geeks. It's been bothering me for a while now that the timeline of Melishi and the Reacreance just does not add up. Like, who is this guy?
Who are you?
I'm about 30% confident that he's just Ishar in a wig. Otherwise, I am 70% certain that Melishi was under Ishar's influence, if not direct control. Full spoiler warning for all published books of the Stormlight Archive up till now, Rhythm of War. Why do I suspect Melishi? Well, we know that someone hurt the sibling some time ago, and we know that Melishi was instrumental in the capturing of Ba'edo Mishram, which caused the Spren to go dead-eye when their oaths got broken, of which the sibling is not one.
He's supposed to be dead!
Yeah, weird.
Who hurt the sibling? When we first meet the sibling, they hate humans, which is odd for the Tower Spren of the Knights Radiant to be, right? And to top it off, after Navani reboots their system, they reveal their original intent and purpose. The common ground, the sibling said, between humans and Spren. That is why I was created so long ago. This original purpose is probably why one of the ancient Radiants is recorded as doing an homage to, pending on your age, Goodnight Construction Site, Goodnight Moon, or the Waltons.
Night, John Boy.
Night, Grandpa.
Good night, Ben.
Calling the sibling sweet, which is not how I would describe the sibling we meet in Rhythm of War. Rather, they are like the first wife of Jane Eyre. This is simply explained by the Stormfather to Dalinar all the way back in Oathbringer. There is a third sibling. They are not with us. In hiding? No. Slumbering. Tell me more. No. Leave them alone. You hurt them enough. Who exactly did the injury? Could it have been someone specific? Someone who had the opportunity and the power to do real, permanent harm? Someone like their bonded Radiant, Melishi. Melishi, in my first few readings of Rhythm of War, comes across as like a misunderstood genius. He was only trying to help by building them a shield. We like shields in fantasy worlds. They are defensive. They are not weapons. And they can be used to keep the enemy out. As the sibling says, long ago, before I banished men from these halls, my last bondsmith made me something, a method of protecting me from the dangers I saw in men. He thought it would help me trust again. It did not. In the context of Rhythm of War, this is great. Melishi has erected effectively a blue wall of air glass protecting the sibling. But what business, I ask you, does a bondsmith in the original context have in building a mechanism that effectively builds a wall?
How does the wall keep us free? The wall keeps out the enemy.
Walls, especially in today's media, are literary shorthand for uniting some while intentionally excluding others. And those others in Melishi's days would have been other Radiants. You know, the people he was supposed to unite, thus making it physical his distrust of certain other Radiants who might not be worthy of their oaths.
It's the motto of my office, serve and protect. There are those who walk among us who show no respect.
This rumor mill is also recorded in the ancient gemstones. Something is happening to the sibling. I agree this is true. But the division among the Knights Radiant is not to blame. Our perceived worthiness is a separate issue. So, on Melishi's watch as bondsmith, we have him physically creating a process that sows further division amongst the Knights Radiants, and then plotting a scheme to capture Ba-Ado Mishram, a sapient spren. And as we know from Rhythm of War, the sibling doesn't like the capturing of even non-sapient spren. Spren are meant to be free. By capturing them, you trap nature itself. Can a storm survive if placed in a prison? Can a flower bloom with no sunlight? That is what you do. And yet Melishi, in defiance of his spren, went through with those plans anyway.
Objection. Overruled. No. No, I strenuously object. Oh, wow. Strenuously object, and I should take some time to reconsider.
Leaving his spren a wounded, traumatized shadow of their former self. Melishi captured Ba-Ado Mishram. In Rhythm of War, we hear from several sources that capturing spren in gemstones was a new technological discovery made during the False Desolation, as Raboniel says it most directly to Navani. We used rasium to fill gemstones, but didn't realize until the fall of Ba-Ado Mishram that capturing spren in gemstones was possible. When Shallan groped the Midnight Mother back in Oathbringer, she learned that that spren had been captured in a gemstone by a Lightweaver very long ago. This perhaps was the Radiant's first foray into capturing Unmade. Yet, the gemstone must have been imperfect and somewhat porous, as it eventually allowed the Unmade to escape. And perhaps during that time of being stored in Urithiru, the Midnight Mother had a negative effect on Radiant morale.
What happens when Sauron takes back what is his?
That imperfection would have had to have been overcome by Melishi if he wanted to capture Ba-Ado Mishram to stop the desolations once and for all. So Melishi retired to his tent and resolved to destroy the Voidbringers upon the next day. But that night did present a different stratagem, related to the unique abilities of the bondsmiths, and being hurried, he could make no specific account of his process. It was related to the very nature of the heralds and their divine duties, an attribute the bondsmiths alone could address. I like to imagine that Melishi walked into the Radiant strategy tent like,
We need a more permanent solution to our problem.
which sounds an awful lot like something Ishar would say, or maybe did say during a Aharietiam. Not to mention the character in the clip is Caiaphas, who is slightly more well known for saying, You know nothing at all. You do not realize that it is better for you that one man die for the people than the whole nation perish. Theological ramifications aside, this is also frightfully similar to what Jezrien says at Aharietiam. Better that one man should suffer than 10, Jezrien whispered. And while we're on the topic of biblical allusions, let's not forget Adolin's trial, where Maya is brought to the stand, and the judge of the last day says, Behold this spren, Sekir commanded, which sounds to me a lot like Pilate's Ecce Homo. And Pilate said to them, Behold the man. It seems like the Deadeyes are now taking the place of Taln as those unfortunate few that have to be sacrificed for the greater good. We went from sacrificing one guy to 8 spren races. Nice work, Melishi, or Ishar, or whoever you are. Now, one could say that Melishi only meant to sacrifice one unmade. It's not like he knew he would swipe the singer's sapience and basically kill 8 species of spren, right?
Right?
Right.
Wrong!
If Melishi didn't know that this would injure Spren, then how come the sibling is not dead?
You're not dead.
No. He shot me.
So, Melishi was a bondsmith who we've heard could see the lines of spiritual connection overlapping those of the physical realm, according to the Stormfather. Melishi saw these lines. The connection exists, but isn't something that can necessarily be exploited, at least not by most people. A bondsmith, however. As discussed in last week's video, to see these lines in the spiritual realm, you either need to burn an excremental ton of investiture or piggyback off of a shard who is an excremental ton of investiture. Maybe bondsmiths, Spren, have always allowed their radiance to see into the spiritual realm, sort of, without going completely insane, and seeing how Ba Edo Mishram was connected to everything, as Ulam explains. Basically, everyone relied way too much on an oversized Spren. Trouble is, Spren can get stuck in gemstones, and the humans figured this out. End result, Ba Edo Mishram got a really cramped prison, and everyone's souls got seriously messed up. It's like Melishi looked at what I'm sure was the elegant undulating pattern of Ba Edo Mishram's influence and said,
I'm gonna wreck it!
Now, at this time, if you'd asked the rank and file, foot soldiers like Maya Lauren, what would happen when they broke their oaths, they knew it would be a sacrifice, but they didn't think it would be a sort of death. Before the Reacreance, the Deadeyes had never existed. Something to do with the fall of the Singers and the Knights Radiant so long ago, and the imprisoning of a specific Spren. Then maybe Melishi didn't know either.
But I doubt it.
If Melishi was still bounded to the sibling at the time he captured Ba Edo Mishram against their will, and then broke his oaths, the sibling would have gone super Deadeye like every other Radiant Spren at the time. However, this is not what happened. The sibling went into hibernation from trauma in a very similar way that Syl did when Relador's death traumatized her. Let's return back to the scene of the crime.
We're on the move to the scene of the crime.
It's been heavily implied that Ba Edo Mishram was captured at Narok, the center of the Shattered Plains. They blame our people for the loss of that land, the city that once covered it. They'd range the eastern strand, the power made known in the tomes of our clan. Our gods were not who shattered these plains. There, in Narok, the listeners found 8 sets of shards, which corresponds to the 8 species of Spren that were devastated by the Reacreance, though 9 orders were disbanded. It makes sense for each order to have sent a representative to Ba Edo Mishram's capturing, followed by them disavowing their oaths in epic fashion. Logically, Melishi wouldn't have dropped a sword since his Radiant Spren is a friggin' tower in the physical realm, but he didn't leave any shard plate.
Can you explain that?
The other logical alternative is that Melishi broke his oath to the sibling before capturing Ba Edo Mishram, thereby losing his plate. However, he was able to obtain his powers of a bondsmith through an honor blade, those rare powers of the heralds, who we know a few just happened to be there at the capturing of Ba Edo Mishram, at least according to Godeki's Miss Spren, and then later confirmed by Kalak. I have heard several heralds were there for Ba Edo Mishram's binding. Nilan, Kalak. The Heralds, despite their varying levels of sanity, have all been pretty devoted to keeping another desolation from happening again, no matter the consequences to Roshar. And Melishi seems suspiciously on board with this agenda that I believe came from Ishar. Melishi seems so on board with this agenda that I would not be surprised if he was himself Ishar in a wig.
Please, go about your business. I'm okay.
Your head looks swollen.
Actually, she's just ugly.
Maybe Ishar just descended in one of his visions that bondsmiths can give people and told Ishar to, as his namesake god, capture Ba Edom Mishram, and kept the whole doom of Radiant Sprennan singers on the down low. Perhaps he just suggested to Melishi that he should break his oaths to the Sibling first, since the Sibling wouldn't have wanted to capture Ba Edom Mishram anyway, and therefore Melishi was better off going to get an honor blade, which granted now... This maneuver ironically spared the Sibling for posterity because of their persnicketyness and what Sanderson considers the most important element to a plot, the checks on the powers. So, let me know your thoughts down in the comment section below. This theory has plenty of holes in it, I know, but I can't get over how everything seems to come back to Ishi. So, thanks for watching. Bye!